So aviation knows no borders, and neither do the challenges we face, from staffing shortages to rising traffic, evolving technology, and new entrants into the system. Air traffic controllers around the globe are tackling many of the same issues. This panel brings together international labor leaders to share perspectives on workforce challenges, collaboration, and how we can strengthen safety standards across our shared skies. Please welcome our panelists, Nicola, Riada, Human Factors Expert and Communications Coordinator for IFATCA, Joel Ortiz, NATCA's Western Pacific Regional Vice President and Alliance, Nick von Schoenberg, President of Global Air Traffic Control Alliance and Canadian Air Traffic Control Association, Scott Nugent of the Air Traffic Service Navigation Alliance, and our moderator today, John Murdock, National Safety Chair, NATCA.
All right. Well, good morning again. Happy Wednesday. Third, fourth, fifth day in Vegas. Crowd's looking great. Doing good. Just a little more fun this morning. A little lighthearted panel. Talk about some of the common issues we have in aviation and air traffic control safety across North America and across the globe. So we have a couple leaders here, as Dawn introduced, and I'm going to let them have a minute and introduce themselves and so you can get to know the panel. So Scott, why don't you start off and let us know who you are, where you work, and what organization are you with?
Thanks, John. My name's Scott Nugent. I'm the president of Civil Air, which is the Australian Air Traffic Control Union and Professional Association. I am still a full-time air traffic controller in Sydney Terminal Control Units. I've been there about 3.5 years. And before that, I was working in Brisbane Centre for about 6 years.
Thanks, Scott. And he eloquently told me I fell into the trap yesterday. It's Australia, not Austria, when you write stuff down. So thank you, Scott. Nick, go ahead.
Hi, hello again, everyone. Nick von Schoenberg. I'm the president of the Canadian Air Traffic Controllers Association. Prior to assuming that role, I worked as an operational controller for 25 years in Vancouver, in the Vancouver area, small tower, and then terminal control, and then a complex tower at Vancouver International. And I've also assumed the role of president of the Global Air Traffic Controllers Alliance last year. So I'm quite proud of that and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel?
Good morning, Joel Ortiz. I am the regional vice president for the Western Pacific region. My first FAA facility was Joshua Control Facility, and my last facility was Southern California TRACON.
Great, thank you, Joel. And last but not least, Nicola.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicola and Riada. The reason that we're introducing ourselves is because no one can say my name. I'm an Irish controller. I've been an air traffic controller for 31 years. I work in the En route centre in Shannon. I'm also a legacy, I believe is the term here, second generation. My dad was a controller. I work on my international association, so I represent IFATCA here, the International Federation of Air Traffic Controllers, as the communications coordinator to the executive board, and I'm also the international representative on our Irish association.
Well, thank you. And that's a great lead into our first question is could you tell the audience what is IFATCA and what does the association do?
Absolutely. So IFATCA is the International Federation of Air Traffic Controllers Associations. So what NATCA does for you guys here nationally, IFATCA does worldwide. We represent professional associations in over 130 countries, which, as you can imagine, is a diverse grouping, to say the least. Although air traffic controllers from all of those countries are so similar that you could walk into any of our meetings and feel completely at home. We have two main tenets in IFATCA. It is to be the voice of controllers worldwide and to uphold the professionalism of our jobs. And we do that through quite a few mechanisms, including places like ICAO, where we have the privilege of having a seat and being able to influence and input into the policies and procedures, the SARPs that you and I will use every day in our working lives. So that is what we do. We are the voice of ATCOs worldwide.
Well, thank you. And Joel, we talked, the Alliance came up once or twice already this morning. Can you describe what the Alliance is?
Sure. So the Alliance is made up of the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Spain, and the UK. Recognizing that ICAO sets the international aviation standards, to ensure that each country isn't operating off of a different set of rules or different set of standards. Ultimately, aviation is a global industry. With the increased demands for technology and modernization, and they come at a rapid pace, we can't afford right now to go to our respective countries and only isolate ourselves and not take a global approach. For all of you who went to the convention or were at the convention a couple months ago, one thing was said on the floor multiple times. If they can do it to one of us, they can do it to all of us. So with this group of countries on the alliance, they work 68% of the world's air traffic and represent 54% of the world's airspace. We meet and speak regularly. We talk about concerns or potential changes that are going to come. We address them. We evaluate the safety component to it, efficiency. Is it a benefit to the flying public? Is it a benefit to the controllers, a benefit to the membership? And then we stand united on any threats that would compromise the integrity of our profession. I think another byproduct of us speaking regularly is we get to talk about our memberships and the focal issues with our memberships. And I think what you'll find as the panel continues to go on is pay, staffing, and modernization are the core issues for all of our countries.
Yeah, well stated, Joel. And yes, you're absolutely right. We're gonna dive into some of those issues right now. And I think that's great. Going right back to Nicola, what are the biggest international challenges you're seeing when it's coming to hiring and staffing and recruitment and retention?
Joel stole all my thunder. It's no surprise to anybody here. These are the topics we've been talking about. Worldwide, definitely staffing is our biggest issue. But I'd like to throw a little bit of a grenade at it. 30 years in this job, we're still recruiting almost the same way that we did when I started. Training, modernizing our equipment, maybe our curriculums a little bit, but no mad changes. I would like to say the biggest challenge might be us addressing the challenges, thinking outside the box and figuring out how are we going to do it differently to make it better.
Great. And Nick, what do you have? What are you seeing up in Canada? Similar issues that Joel and maybe Nicola talked about?
Yeah, very similar. Absolutely. Staffing's probably first and foremost biggest issue, biggest challenge that we face. On that point, I think it's important to say we didn't get here recently. This is not a byproduct of COVID. This has been a hole that we've been digging for several decades. And, we always point to training and recruitment as if that's the answer, and I'm not sure it is the answer. I think we got here because of short-term thinking and bad workforce planning, quite frankly. I think the ANSPs have to change the way they think about people, and they have to think about what's important to their organizations. They're always happy to roll out long-term technological innovation plans with 20, 30-year time horizons. But if they had done that with respect to controllers and people 20 years ago, we wouldn't be where we are now, right? We know that there's a finite capacity to train. We know that this is, there are obstacles. It's tough to qualify controllers, and there's a reason for that. It's a really difficult job that takes technical aptitude and a certain type of character. We already know that. There's a 30 to 40% qualification rate. I think that has been historically pretty consistent. I think that is globally pretty consistent when you actually drill down and look at street-to-seat qualification. So we have to change the way we think, and I think the answer is making a long-term commitment to staffing, investing more in people, and recognizing the importance of people and experts to the organization on a long-term basis.
Yeah, Nick, you're nailing it, right? It is great to invest in technologies and build a new system. It's important, but more important is invest in the people. The people are the ones that get the system going and moving and safe. So absolutely right. Want to foot stomp that point is so important. Hey, Scott, so, and I already see the question up. It didn't take long, but we were ready.
Not long
for
at
it.
all.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Australia's poaching everybody. So, Scott, what's going on in Australia?
Well, pretty much every international event I go to, I get bombarded by people, and this event is no different. A lot of questions, I hear a lot of rumors, which is quite interesting. I'll set the record very straight because I've been hearing numbers. I've heard 100 people, I've heard 200 people, Joel, I think you told me you heard 2,000 people, someone told you, had come to Australia.
I mean, I think they took all of Albuquerque Center at one point. I don't know, but I think I heard that.
Our entire country only has 1,000 civil air traffic controllers. So we definitely didn't take 2,000. I can tell you the real number, it's about 30 people. Now that's not insignificant, but it's nothing like what has been rumoured. We actually, much like the US, have a requirement that to work for Air Services Australia, you have to be an Australian or New Zealand citizen. And to go overseas and recruit internationally, we had to receive approval from our federal government. And there's a cap associated with that. And we will hit that cap and stop recruiting internationally well before we get anywhere near those numbers that are rumoured or talked about. But just to put into context a bit about, because I think the question was phrased about leaving to Australia for quality of life improvements. I have members in Australia who, when they hear that you work mandatory overtime and 6-day work weeks, which I know from talking to Joel and Nick and everyone else from NATCA, that's a huge concern. I've heard it up on stage this week, that's a huge concern for you. I have people jealous about that. I have members coming to me saying they wish that we had that in Australia. They work 600, 900, 1,000 hours of overtime per year and are jealous that you have to work overtime every single week. Now, I'm not, but this is probably quite shocking for you to hear that. And I think it just puts in context that the grass, while it might always seem greener, it's not always greener. Every country has fantastic benefits, but every country also has challenges associated with it, and that comes back to this point about this is a global industry, and we do have to work together and share this information and discuss and try and get on the same page internationally so that we can perhaps avoid some of these fake rumours that one country is better than everywhere else. I think Australia's great, but some people would love to be here working those 6-day weeks, and that's something I can't imagine many people sitting out there can really reconcile with.
Yeah. Well, thanks for setting the record straight, Scott. Albuquerque Center's still there. 30 people international. So great, thank you. Nicola, I want to jump back right to you real quick. Since we're talking about poaching, is anybody else in the world trying to grab controllers from other associations?
First off, I don't love the poaching word. Yes, this is not a new concept. So for you guys, obviously, it's very different because you have to be American and to be part of your federal administration. In Europe, for example, every European Union country, if they're part of IATA, which is our regulatory body, can move around. So controllers in Ireland can work in Estonia, they can work in Norway, wherever they want within that European Union. The issue of direct entry controllers, which is taking people who've already been rated somewhere else and retraining them, is not new. The Middle East is probably one of the ones most commonly talked about. Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, most recently Qatar, offering very large salaries for controllers to go and to work over there. But even in Ireland, we have 4 students at the moment in our school, and they are direct entries. 3 of them are not Irish. It is not a new concept. What it does make us need to think about as a global community is, what do we want to do with that mobility? Do we want to make it harder, or do we want to make it easier? Do we want to look at common licensing? Those are the questions kind of that comes up. But no, this is not a new concept.
Right, and I know IFATCA is working through the common licensing and trying to move controllers worldwide, and what that would look like and how we would do that responsibly and appropriately. So I love that IFATCA is looking into it and doing that. Moving a little bit into the staffing and how it affects efficiency and safety. Joel, how are the shortages affecting us here in the U.S.?
Oh, staffing has a huge impact on safety and efficiency. I mean, when you're short-staffed, you're generally working 6-day work weeks. So now you have the fatigue component. When you're short-staffed, you're working positions that should normally be decombined. So you're working sectors combined, higher volumes of traffic with less people, more time on position. That absolutely compromises safety. And then the efficiency component, when you don't have the staffing, then you all know what staffing triggers are. Staffing triggers come in, you get TMIs, ground delays occur. And the way you fix staffing is through training. And when you have short staffing and you have to combine positions, especially at the centers, when you can't get the D-side training, you can't even train your way out of the staffing problem because you don't have the bodies to do it. So staffing affects just about everything.
Yeah, it's underlying, right? And that goes back to the investment into the employees and the people in the system. And Nick, north up there in Canada, you're seeing the same efficiency and safety issues, I think, with the staffing and TMIs and those kind of things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Joel's answer was excellent, right on. In fact, efficiency is the most evident thing to go first. We don't. The erosion of safety is not quite as evident always, but once it becomes evident, it is very, very evident. And that's something like the messaging in Canada has generally been, yes, we're having some efficiency challenges, but don't worry about it, we're still absolutely safe. And I don't really agree with that messaging, because safety is not you're safe or you're not safe. Right. It's not a binary concept. Yep. We build in margins of safety into the way we do our work, and those margins are either greater or lesser. And I would challenge anybody to say, well, if you can't provide a continuity of service from an efficiency perspective at all, are you now to have me believe that there is absolutely no impact on safety? That's completely unbelievable. Yeah. And disingenuous, right? So that's maybe an uncomfortable truth, but it is a truth. And I think we have to get our heads around that. In terms of the flying public, I think people have become accustomed, and the expectations are, I want to be able to get to where I want to get to very quickly, very cheaply, anytime I want. And maybe the system is starting to show, like, there are limits to capacity. And the airlines don't want to acknowledge that. In fact, is one of the problems that we see is, I'll give an example, Vancouver, they will overschedule. Even on the very best day where you're operating at peak efficiency, the airlines schedule in too much capacity. So there will be consequences for them. There's going to be delays, there's going to be cancellations. Well, whose fault is that? You can't point now at the air traffic controllers and say, hey, that guy called in sick. That's not the issue here. So 100% we're seeing efficiency problems, we're seeing airspace closures, we're seeing delays, TMIs at an increasing rate, and those things are becoming increasingly normalized, which is of concern. And the backdrop is there is an erosion of the margin of safety, and that should be of concern to everybody.
Yeah, just from the safety guy, I appreciate you saying that we're not safe or unsafe, right? There's a level of risk involved in everything we do, right? We introduce risk and we mitigate risk, and it's just not an on-off switch, right? And so I think that's important for the audience to hear, and I do appreciate you bringing that up, and I think you're highlighting the collaborative nature that's so important, right? The things that we do work with our stakeholders and the ANSPs, right, to work through those issues of overscheduling and how do we mitigate those things, and I think, as Frank McIntosh maybe said, spread the peanut butter yesterday a little bit, right? How do we spread that across, right? And so we're managing what's going on there. Scott, I'd like to just talk a little bit and change a little bit and talk about technologies, right? And down in Australia, what new technologies are using, or what might be coming, either in terms of AI, remote towers, space integration, new surveillance tools, something like that? What are you seeing, and what are you getting?
So we've probably got two big initiatives in Australia technology-wise. One is a new automation system, which is hopefully being launched in the next couple of years. And the other one is a new digital tower. So it's the first time we've used digital towers in Australia, and that will launch next year when the new Western Sydney International Airport opens. That will obviously be a challenge for us, being a first of type initiative. But just back on the automation system, I don't want to go off track of your question, but yesterday I was hearing people talking about here in the States, you're looking to upgrade everything in the next 3 years. So our new automation system, the project to upgrade that started in 2010. So 15 years ago already. We didn't sign a contract until 2018, so it took 8 years to get through the red tape to start that project. And we're still probably not going to have it running for another 2 or 3 years. So it's an 18-year project for Australia. Now, There are a couple of things that were, I think, missing, which I hope you have addressed here. One was a real motivation from our government to get the project done, and it seems to me like you have that here. And the second one was the people. We had a real lack, and we still unfortunately suffer from a real lack of experts, frontline experts that are involved in these projects to make sure that not only do they get across the line, but they get across the line in a way which is fit for purpose for the end users, which is all of you. And I'm very encouraged yesterday from hearing about some of the involvement of NATCA and some of your people in these new modernisation projects. And hopefully you can learn some of the lessons that we had to learn the hard way in Australia to get it done. But there's a more holistic message in that, which is we need to walk before we can run. We can talk about AI and space-based technology, and when we've been at CANZO meetings and things like that, there's all these wonderful new technologies and ideas and initiatives being tossed out. We can't even get the basics right. Globally, we can't get the basics right. We have in Australia buildings which are crumbling. We have technology which is labouring. I know you are experiencing the same thing here as well. That needs to be upgraded. We need to provide a basic service in a safe and efficient way which suits our people before we can start talking about space and AI and all that stuff. So all of that is down the track for me, and I think it's about getting that first step right and getting the people involved.
Well, I mean, we've said it once, twice, 3 times. The people are the most important and will continue to be. So, I appreciate that. Joel, what's our approach? What are we doing here in the U.S. to implementing new systems? We talked about it a little bit yesterday, but NATCA, what are we doing?
Say it again.
About what's our approach? How are we trying to implement new systems through collaboration, through working with the agency and their stakeholders, and maybe right here at CFS?
That's a perfect example. If you walk around that convention hall, you see all the industry out there. We all know that beautiful bill has $12.5 billion into modernization, and we're all going to get new equipment here very, very soon. So making sure we're at the forefront of what that equipment is going to be, what it is you're all going to use, making sure the people that actually do the job on a daily basis are the ones telling us this is what we need, this is what we don't need.
Great. And so I'm going to take a question or two off the Slido. So I'll just start at the top there. For anybody on the panel, what are your countries doing to accommodate your personnel's working conditions to maintain retention?
Okay, it's a difficult one because what is retention? I know that sounds like a silly question to ask, but are we talking about actual conditions, or are we just talking about people being happy coming to work? Last year we had a new contract in Australia, but one of the things we talked about with our members there was, let's say I made your pay $2 million a year. Great, fantastic. You still come to work, you're short-staffed, you work long hours, you work in ways which you say, and I believe and agree, are unsafe. You work on equipment that fails. You have to close airspace to have a break. We have tower controllers that have to take a radio into the toilet and leave the door open, or the Bluetooth connection to the base station breaks and they can't talk to anyone, and they're controlling planes from the toilet. That stuff needs to be resolved. Yeah. And if those things get resolved, everyone is happier coming to work.
Yeah. Did you say they were controlling planes from the toilet?
Yes. There's one particular airport in Australia, which we're obviously quite engaged in handling that, but there is one airport in Australia where the controllers have to use the radio from the toilet because they're a single person operation, and if they shut the door, the Bluetooth connection breaks. So they have to use the bathroom with the door open.
That's what I thought you said. Okay.
So it's not just the states with challenges.
We're going to work through that one. Thank you. I think, Nicola, I'm going to throw this to you, I'm the IFATCA rep for NATCA, but I think this question might be really good suited for you can a NATCA member join IFATCA and vice versa? If not, so how can we get involved? I can tell them how to get involved, but how does somebody or an association join IFATCA? What does that look like?
So it's a process like anything else. We actually had 3 new member associations join this year in Abu Dhabi. You saw some of them. Yep. We've Suriname from your region, the Americas, and 2 from the Africa Middle East region. So because we're a professional body, what it is it's chartered. So the application comes through, they have to adhere to the criteria, and then they get accepted, and then they're brought into the fold. for NATCA members here, so NATCA has been a member of IFATCA for a very long time. And John has sort of downplayed his role there, but NATCA is one, along with CATCA Australia, they are backbones of our organization. They're incredibly selfless. I really wish I could tell you guys how amazing ambassadors your volunteers are at an international level. You have volunteers in almost every aspect of IFATCA. John being your main rep, but you have 2 executive board members from NATCA, you have members in our Speak English program, in our technical committees, in our professional committees. Ye shine. You are absolutely part of benchmarking, of showing the world stage how things can be done. Also learning, sometimes we can assume that our first world countries are the ones that are leading the way. And it is sometimes talking to the very tiny member associations like in the Caribbean, and you realize not just how lucky you are, but the things that you can learn from them. And the joy that they bring into their professional lives is something I'm always happy to be a part of. So if anyone from this NATCA family wants to get involved at IFATCA level international, speak to your own FAC reps initially, talk to your leadership, and I mean, obviously it's an internal discussion at that point.
Yeah, I can take
John will slap me now when we get off the stage.
I'll take that part. Something that resonates, and I'll get to the how do you get involved part. Something resonated with me yesterday when Sean Ellis had the slide on there. What moment made you think about what you have going on? And when we were in Abu Dhabi last year, it's my first IFATCA event. It was humbling to hear the working conditions and what our brothers and sisters around the world don't have, or what very little they do have. And I think that's what was so resonating with me, the ability for NATCA, CATCA, the Alliance, right? All of us to go and support our brothers and sisters worldwide, because there is huge struggles out there. And that was really something that really resonated with me, when there's members that rely on IFATCA so much, because it was their, all the dues they collected for 1 year in their association, they could go to one conference, and they chose to go to the IFATCA one because they got help, right? And we have a great presence at IFATCA, NATCA. We have a ton of amazing reps that are involved, and we're getting more involved. So if you would like to get involved, whoever you are out there, please come see me. I'd love to talk to you, because there's definitely opportunities out there within the association to do some things. So thank you for being interested in that. So maybe another question or two here. How do the labor challenges compare between private and public sector air traffic control? I don't know who would want to start, but Nick, I think it's probably a good spot.
That's a really good question, very interesting. And I think they're probably remarkably similar, interestingly enough. And we could see, just even within the Alliance, we've got a variety of different models. Obviously, we've got the FAA model. In Canada, we have a sort of a unique model. We have I would call it quasi-private. It's a private, not-for-profit organization. In the UK, you have the sort of a for-profit model, but we're all facing the same challenges. And I think it's attributable to the fact that the corporate way of thinking is the same, essentially, and which is somewhat surprising, but it is true. And people think they do their plans in short terms. They think about the bottom line. It quite often dictates disproportionately decision making. We lose sight of the fact that air navigation is essentially a public good. One would have thought that lesson would have been well learned over the course of the pandemic. It's not just an enabler for commercial enterprises to make a lot of money. It actually serves a public good. People need it. So I think from a labor perspective, it's interesting that we face the same challenges, but we do. And I think it reveals to some extent this simple truth that the answer, it's complicated. Like, there are no perfect solutions here. There's no perfect answer. There are trade-offs. And it's a matter of managing those trade-offs and finding the right balance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Joel or Scott or anybody, do you want to add anything?
Well, I was just going to say we're a public, well, officially we're a non-public service public service organisation. So that's a little bit complicated.
It's kind of like controlling airplanes from the toilet.
But
makes a lot of sense.
But something that when you're a public service organisation, one of the difficulties you have is that you have to fit in with what the government is doing. You can't just go off on a completely different tangent. You have to work with them. You have to engage with them. You have to work along the policies and the lines that the government wants. I know sometimes that can be difficult to swallow. Now, if in a private organisation, that's not the case, but you have all these other issues. As Nick mentioned, the primary one being that you're now motivated by profit and not a lot else. And I don't think that's a particularly good driver either. So they both have challenges. If I had any hair, I'd probably be spending most nights pulling it out, thinking about the challenges dealing with governments and things like that. But it's something that we do need to be aware of. For those of us that work in public organisations, we have to fit in with the government.
Yeah, and so really it's common challenges, right? Where it doesn't, public, private, we're facing staffing, money, right? Technologies, keeping up with the new entrants, right? All those things come together, and the most common thing is the person, right? And that's what this group is doing, and that's what we're doing, is advocating for the controller, right? Making sure the most important, most complex part of the system is taken care of and taken care of appropriately. So I want to thank the panel members. I want to offer it up. They're available for questions off stage, even if they didn't know it. They are now. So if we didn't answer your question, please hunt us down. We'll definitely do it. And we'll keep going on, and we'll move into I think, a break. Somebody's going to come up and get us off here. So thank you. Thanks to the panel, and thanks for coming back on Wednesday.
Thank you.